Okay, guys, we're going to go through some program design for handstands today. Try and make it as quick and simple as possible because it could be something that people make very complex and they spend more time doing their program design than they do their training. So ask questions as we go if you come on live. I will check back on the comments, obviously, in the future. So if you're watching it in the future, stick comments down. And I'll come back and check them and answer any questions I can. Let's see if I can sort this light out so we haven't got a weird thing on the screen. Okay, so grab some pens. Let's go through the program design. So handstand program design. I'm going to go through the balance, the warm-up, the strength, program. I can't spell and talk at the same time. Design. Okay, so let's split it in some different elements. So basically, everyone needs to do some sort of warm-up. So let's put some categories across the top, and then we'll go through some options for each thing. So we need a warm-up. So there. We need some conditioning. There. We need some balance. There. I like to add a bit of fun in there as well. Some fun. Then we need some strength. So with the strength side, I normally go in our bent arm strength and then our straight arm strength. Now I'm just going to talk relative to handstands today, but that could go into other things. It doesn't have to be bent arm, straight arm. So they're the categories I would go through. There's another thing that will fit in here as well, so your flexibility. So flexibility is something we're going to add in as we go. So if I put that, what's the best way of doing that? Let's just put it down here. So plus flexibility. Flexibility. I can't spell. Okay. So we've got plus flexibility on there as well. Okay, so with your warm-up, obviously that's going to be specific to the individual. If your posture is terrible and you can't put your arms above your head, your warm-up is going to be very different than someone who does handstand every day and has done for some time. So the flexibility warm-up makes the minimum you need to do to get your body ready to handstand. And that will obviously change for everyone. Now, some people like to do loads of flexibility work here. So when they go into the handstand training, they're already warmed up, ready to go, to the point where they don't need any more range. So then in their rest, in their handstands, they're not actually doing flexibility work, or they could do extra flexibility work, but like the flexibility is all done. So some people choose to do flexibility work. So that's why I've put flexibility at the bottom, because some people prefer to add it in on the rest sets as well. And I would recommend most people do a bit of both and then just find which way they like to do it. So that flexibility could go there in terms of your main flexibility work. So, but I'll put a question mark there because it's not essential. And some people then will spend way too much time on this area and not enough time onto the handstands. So with the warm up, we then want to go. Let's see if I can get this a bit closer. See if that makes sense. Okay, so with the warm up, it needs to be minimum amount to get body ready to handstand. Ready to handstand. So minimum amount to get the body ready to handstand. Now, normally there I would do something for upper back thoracic. So thoracic, hang, something like that, overhead mobility, basically to just get you out of this position and try to open you up as much as possible. So thoracic, hang in, upper back work, so just extension work, something to make the hips happy, because most people's hips need freeing up in some way. So either we're turned on in the hip flexors or just closed and switched on and our body's broken in half. So we need to open that up. So hip would normally be then quads and hip flexors. So quads, hip flexors, and then we need to do something for hamstrings. So make sure we can touch our toes or beyond. Now, they're very postural things. So if you are someone that's super tight, we need to be doing way more work on that and less work on the fancy stuff, just to make sure that you're in the best possible position to do it and you're going to have more success as you go. So thoracic, hip flexors, quads, hamstrings. We might want to do something for glutes as well, like pigeon stretch, something like that, just to open up into some rotation. So pigeon stretch there. So real basic. And then the big one for going into any handstand work is wrists and hands. So wrists, hands, and shoulders ready to handstand. And again, that's going to be specific on the person. I find that I can normally jump up cold and do handstands and my wrists are pretty good, just because I demonstrate stuff throughout the day and have done for a few years now. So my body's sort of ready to handstand all the time. But someone else who's on a computer all day long, you're going to have to spend way more time on wrists, forearms, make the body a bit happier before you go into your handstands. So wrists, hands, shoulders. I would make sure before you smash into your shoulders that you really get into the thoracic and the upper back, because you don't want to be in this position and then trying to improve your shoulder flexion, so trying to open your shoulder here. If I can stand up taller, then suddenly I don't need so much shoulder flexion. So a lot of people smash into their shoulders, I think, way too early before they get into their upper back and shoulder, upper back mainly. So thoracic hang, that sort of thing first before you go into the wrists, hands, and shoulders. Okay, once we've done the warm-up, some sort of conditioning hold. Now, you can play around with where you put the conditioning. Some people actually like to do that, like a little warm-up, and then do that after the balance, even after the strength work. I prefer to do it early on. So just to get people to get up to some conditioning positions. Now, again, this is going to be skill dependent. So, but we need to, there's line drills. So like your back line, front, hollow body, that type of thing. So those sort of things. So they're conditioning of the line. So line conditioning. The downside of line conditioning is you're not conditioning your wrists and your hands in terms of taking load. So if you're doing that, so if you're more beginner level and you need to do way more of that work, you also should be doing something to warm up the hands, shoulders, and just the body in terms of taking load through the body, because there's no real load there. So that's like backline drill, laying on the back, that hollow body gymnastic position. On the front, same thing, but trying to get the tail to tuck under, so being a posterior tilt, and just basically make the body one piece and just work on that. The other thing that's really good, and do that as soon as you can, is the chest to wall hold that most people do. So chest to wall as a conditioning hold, because that ties in this. So I would recommend, if you're going to do one conditioning hold, if you can do it, say more than 30 seconds, then your one thing you should really do is chest to wall handstand, because you're getting the best of both. You're getting the line drill to make the body one piece, but you're also getting the chest to wall, so the load in through the hands and the shoulders. In terms of, at the moment, I'm not doing any online training from a class point of view in terms of Zoom and things. I am going to do some in the future. At the moment, I'm just doing single Zoom sessions. So I'm just doing one-on-one sessions, and you can book those on my website. So my schedule's on there, and you can like book in with them, or you can do the online coaching where I just do program design and things like that. So at the moment, I don't do any online classes, but I will be doing those in the future. I've just got to work out like a set time to do it, and I need to get the garage set up so I can really sort of teach a class from here. But they are coming in the future, and I'll let you know when I'm doing sort of a class schedule. I'm thinking of doing like small groups, working on different areas to try and put people together so they're at a similar level, and then doing like a 4 to 6 week course or something like that. Okay, so conditioning, you've done the line drill, the back line drill as needed to make the body one piece. Ideally, that's chest to wall handstand, and we want to be aiming for conditioning holds anything over 30 seconds, but ideally try and get to 60 seconds to 90 seconds. So I'd say that's the sweet spot. If you can do a conditioned hold of 60, 90 seconds, if you can do it easily over 60 seconds, over 90 seconds, the conditioned hold that you're doing is way too easy. We need to try and make it harder. So make sure that it's challenging, but not too challenging. The mistake most people make with the conditioning is they make it actually too hard. So maybe they do a chest or handstand and they can only hold for 5 seconds. That's not a conditioning hold. That's more like a strength hold. So you need to bring it back to a point where you can hold it. Some people might need to put their feet up on the couch or on a box and be in like a pike position and just load the hands and shoulders. That might be where they do their conditioning hold. So don't think that has to be super hard. I think that needs to be comfortable. But if you do start to get over 90 seconds, make it a little bit harder. So if you're sort of my level where you're doing one-arm handstands and handstands are relatively easy, I would still be doing conditioned holds as freestanding. So like today I trained at the gym and I've done mainly strength work, mainly handstand push-ups, but I've done a 2-minute handstand for my conditioned hold to start, just a freestanding handstand to do that. And you could argue that was slightly too easy because I went over the 90 seconds, but my forearms were killing me sort of 90 seconds to 2 minutes. So there's still some conditioning there that I could improve on. So that's the conditioning work. Chest or handstand, and then it could be freestanding. But a good rule with the freestanding is maximum of 2 kick-ups. Like if you need more than 2 kick-ups, then you shouldn't be doing freestanding for your conditioning hold, because that just means that you're going to kick up and down. There's more work. That's more skill work. So we want to make sure that your freestanding is like 45 seconds plus, something like that. Obviously, it's depending on the individual and what they're working on. Yeah, the live streams. So I don't schedule the live streams so much, just because I try and fit them in when I can. So I just do them odd throughout the week. But I'm doing them as like to create content as well. So if you have any questions and you can't attend them live, just watch the recording and stick them down in the comments, and then I'll either reply to you directly, or I'll do another video on the subject if it needs it. They're really hard to schedule at the moment. Just my life with the kids and everything and work, it's really tricky to schedule it in with the Zoom sessions and everything I'm doing at the moment. Okay, and then so balance work. So once we've done the conditioning, we need to get the body ready for conditioning, for balance work. In terms of sets, for the conditioning. So if you're doing 2 to 3 sets, I would recommend that in between those sets, you're doing some flexibility work. So whatever you need to work on, whether that's straddle pancake, whether that's deeper hamstring work, whether that's hip flexors, quads, splits, anything like that, I'd be adding that in on the rest between the 2 to 3 sets. In terms of balance work, so we have the favorites. So the ones that, if you're learning to freestand, heel pulls, toe pulls. So they're like the staples. So that's pulling off the wall with your heels on the wall. So back to wall, pulling off the wall, using the fingertips to pull off. Toe pulls, pulling off using the shoulders. And working just to pull off the wall and go back and forth. Once you get comfortable with that, actually pull into a handstand, show control, go back to the wall. So those are if you go anywhere in the world and do handstand training, it's sort of near enough guaranteed that you'll do some sort of heel pull, you do some sort of toe pull. Now, there are other balance drills that you could do. So like split drills where you're in a split on the wall, pulling off. You could have a body part touching the wall, wherever that is. You could have someone spot you in a balance position. So there's lots of other ones, but I'm just going to put etc. there, because in reality, the best things you should be doing is heel pulls and toe pulls, because you're in control of those. So there's something you can do as a self-practice. They're not reliant on anybody else. All you need is a wall, and they train your overbalance and your underbalance. So we want to have something for our overbalance and something for our underbalance. And that's where toe pulls and heel pulls are really good, because you're training both of those things, both the heel pulls and the toe pulls. So if I fall this way, it could be overbalanced, and this way could be underbalanced. So when I'm falling backwards, I'm using my knees to stop myself falling backwards. So in a 2-arm handstand, I can only fall in 2 directions. There's either underbalance or overbalance. So we need to be doing something there to strengthen that and increase that window of balance. So the window of balance is how far can you move in one direction before you fall, and then how far can you move in the other direction before you fall. So if I kick up to handstand, I've just got to go somewhere in the middle there. Okay, so balance work you could then add in like harder variations of balance work. Could be doing things like shapes. So you could go into your straddle and your tuck work. Now you could argue the straddle and the tuck is sort of getting to skill territory, but we still want to balance those things. But they're like positional work, balance work for different positions. But most people will be looking when they do a handstand, you normally have to have the three main movements, which is the straddle, tuck, and straight. So normally the heel pulls and the toe pulls are mainly done in straight position. You can do them in other positions once you get the technique, but to learn them, you're mainly doing that in straight. So there. Now, the cool thing with especially the tuck one, is that that's going to really work your upper traps and your back and really get your shoulders working. So similar to the toe pulls, the key to get a really, really strong, consistent handstand is to have really good scapular strength. So really good trap strength, so everything around the upper back, just to control your position. So if you've got nothing switched on there, we need to condition that both from a strength point of view, and that's where the tuck handstand really comes in nicely to build some conditioning and strength through there. But then when you work the balance side of it, we want to be holding the position for time. So I'd be doing positioning work both on the straddle and the tuck. So straddle and the tuck would need position work, where that could be flexibility, that could be some strength, and that could be some conditioning on those positions. So you need drills for that, and then you need balance work on those positions. If you're someone who's kicking up to the wall and learning how to kick up and do the heel pulls and toe pulls and things like that, then you're going to be sticking with that at the moment. So the other big thing you're going to add in there with the balance work is the kick-ups. With the cool thing about the kick-ups is you actually don't, once you've learned the technique of the kick-up, you don't actually need it as part of a drill or something you train separately, because whenever you do your drills, you're doing kick-ups or you're doing entries of some sort. So what you need to think about is whenever you do any drill in the balance section, in the fun skill section, we've got to put skill there, I don't want to call it fun. Some people might not like the word fun. So anything you do here, if we're doing handstand push-ups, if we're doing press work and things like that, your entry, how you get into the position before you start the thing, you need a kick-up, you need a jump. So practicing that like you're performing it in terms of the quality for every repetition. Imagine with your balance work, you're going to go to a one-arm handstand. So for a one-arm handstand, you might be looking at, 18 months, 2 years, 18 months to 24 months to start getting a one-arm handstand. To do that, you have to do thousands and thousands of handstand entries. So your kick up and your jumps are going to get amazing just from training the thing. So I wouldn't worry too much about programming separately kick ups and jumps and things like that. I would integrate that into whatever skill level you're on. But you can see already this is getting quite messy. And the reason it's getting messy is because I'm trying to go through progressions and regressions and ideas for the beginner and someone working a one-arm handstand. So you've got to try and pick out the bits that suit you. That's where it's a little bit tricky. So we've got the balance work, and then we've got the fun skill work. So depending on what level you're at, so even if you're doing heel pulls and toe pulls, I would add some sort of fun aspect to it. So it could be a heel pull to freestanding, so a freestanding handstand. So you pull off the wall for a split second, and then when you're in that freestanding handstand, you open to straddle, hold for a few seconds, close back to your straight handstand, go back to your wall again. and then you do you pull off the wall and then you try going down to a little bit of a tuck and come back out again. So it could be something like that, and that's going to change for everyone. And it could be something that just keeps you entertained, makes it fun, or it could be towards a specific skill you're working on. So the fun skill for the person working the one-arm handstand is going to be one-arm handstand, but it might be block walking. It could be tuck downs. So going from straight to tuck and back up again. It could be straddle scissors. So it's training the skill or training the fun once you've done some balance work on the positions. So obviously to do a tuck down, you need a straight handstand and you need a tuck. For the straddle scissors, you need a straight handstand and you need a straddle. And then that's just going between the two. But you need to have the balance position down first. So the L-shape hold. So if you're talking about like that position with your feet on the wall, yes, it's a very, very useful position. I really like that position, especially for beginners, because they can put their feet up on a box or on a couch or something like that. And then they can build some capacity there. So that works really well in that conditioning hold position. For the person who's a bit more advanced, that position can work to take you towards like 7 position or like pike handstands and things like that. So it's very useful. You do have to be a little bit careful with it, especially if you do things like yoga, because your hip flexors already like to close all the time, or your pelvis, your hips like to close. So doing something else that folds the hip, I wouldn't be doing that much. So as a priority, I would still be trying to get your body into like chest to wall positions, straight lines as best you can, because we spend too much time folded in the other things we do. If you struggle with joint pain, so whether it's thumbs or fingers or wrists or anything like that, I'd recommend you explore as much floor as you can, so different positions. Make sure you have good flexibility for your upper back, for your pelvis and things like that, so your wrists aren't just, or your fingers and your wrists just aren't taking all the load. Make sure everywhere else has good mobility. If you still struggle, you could try different hand positions. You could turn the hands out a little bit, find a position that's comfortable for you. But there's no issue with using blocks or raising the hand slightly or using P-bars. No issue at all, apart from you're just limiting yourself a little bit. I mean, saying that, like, if you train on floor, you can become very good on floor. You'll jump on a set of P-bars or blocks, and you'll learn to balance on that in like 5 minutes. So you could do the same the other way around. You could balance, get really good on P-bars or blocks. And then if your thumbs get better, or if you want to try the floor again, you'd probably change back over to the floor relatively easy. But you are obviously like confining yourself a little bit to how you're training. Okay, so once we've done that bit, so you've done a warm-up, you've done conditioning, you've done balance, and you've done some sort of skill work. There could be, like I said, with the flexibility, that could be here on your rest sets. So when you're resting from any of these, you could do flexibility. But again, that depends on how much flexibility you need and how draining is the flexibility. So you could be someone that needs loads of flexibility work, but when you do it, it's so demanding to the nervous system that then if you try and combine the flexibility and the handstands, then you just basically can't handstand because you're too fried from doing the flexibility work. If that's the case, I would do a little bit more flexibility here and then have a separate day or a separate session where you do your flexibility work. So again, you can see how that's a little bit dependent on the individual. Okay, I've got about 5 minutes left, so just quickly go through the strength bass work and SAS work. So with the strength bass work, so bent arm strength, we are looking at things like handstand push-ups. And that's what I would do. So I would do this, and then at the end of that session, I would do a few sets, depending on where you're at, with whatever goal you're going towards in terms of your strength. If you find that you're fried from this, you probably need to do this on a separate session, but most people will be able to do this and then add either a handstand push-up or a press, or that could be a planche. This one you could go to like chin-ups and things like that. So I would normally, if your goal is handstand related, I would do handstands as a priority with a little bit of chins. And if you're straight arm strength, if you're doing press work, I would do that as a priority, or planche as a priority with something like skin the cat, front levers. Front lever pulls are really good if you're doing press work, something like that. But again, if you're handstanding, this needs to be priority and this needs to be priority. It's really, really hard to have this as a goal and then trying to max out your handstand push-ups, your presses, your chin-ups, your planches, your muscle-ups, you know, and everything else. You could, if you wanted to go strength and not do any of this, you could put legs in there. So you could do leg training after you've done handstands, but I'll do it separately. So hopefully that gives you an idea on the complexity of handstand program design. It's actually quite simple. If I said, okay, today we're going to use an example of a beginner, so someone who can't handstand at all. Obviously here there would just be, you know, a basic warm-up, a line drill, whatever version of chest to wall handstand they can do, kick up to the wall, doing some heel pulls, and then they might play with the fun skill bit, might be turning them around and attempting the toe pull, or it might be just trying to heel pull off the wall and do a little bit of a freestanding hold. And that might be it. And here they might do some push-ups, like standard push-ups, not handstand push-ups. And here they might just do some good morning leans, where they're going up onto their tiptoes in that position. And then if it was an advanced person, it would be a little bit more of an intense warm-up, quicker, and then it would be a conditioning hold. It might be a freestanding handstand. The balance work might be going into some tuck downs or some straddle scissors, and the fun skill might be doing some flags, getting them ready for one arms. The strength might be handstand push-up and presses. So it's a little bit confusing when done like that, but I wanted to give an idea of what goes through my head when I'm programming for people, and just give you guys a little bit of a stepping stone up with the program design. I have got a longer YouTube video on where I go through program design, but it basically goes through that same information. Most people are using something similar to that. If you train with any other coaches around the world, they'll sort of, handstands is pretty basic. It might come across as being a bit confusing, but in terms of what the exercises there are, it's like if you want to get good at doing chin-ups, there's only like a certain amount of exercises that are really good. Anything else is a bit of fluff on top. It doesn't mean they're not good, but they're like assistance exercises where these are the main things. Okay, guys, if there's no more questions, I'm going to sign off now. That was a good goal. My goal was 30 minutes. It's 27 minutes now. I spoke quick, confused everyone. So let me know down if you watch this, if you're watching this in the future, or if you're still online now and you have any other questions, stick them down in the comments, or send me a message directly, and I'll try and answer them. And if it's needed, I can do another video specific to the question. So I'll speak to you soon, guys. Have a good day. Cheers.